Okay, we are live.
Woo.
Hello.
Hi, everybody, and welcome
Hi.
to the third edition of Picking Brains. It's been going well so far, hasn't it, people?
Yes,
Yeah.
it has.
It's been going
Been
good.
really fun.
Yeah, it's been good. So a little bit about Picking Brains. So the majority of the people that we have as part of this kind of video cast podcast work for a company called Zombie Infection. We provide zombie experiences across the UK normally in normal circumstances. And as much as the leisure and scare industry at the moment, we are in lockdown as much of the rest of the world, really. So we've been interviewing different industry professionals that run similar companies to ours, specifically within the scare industry, on our Picking Brains podcast every week to just get a little idea about how they're dealing with it, their plans for the future, how we might come out of it. Today, we are joined by Lee Conway from Faceless Ventures.
Hiya.
Thanks ever so much for joining us. This isn't the first time us as a group, as a collective, have been talking about extreme scare attractions. It came up a few weeks ago about some attractions that we've done in the past. So we thought it'd be really cool to get you on. First of all, I think what we'll do is we'll get the guys to introduce themselves, and then I've got a little bit of blurb that I've grabbed from your website, so I can do that. So Meg, do you want to go first?
Okay, so hi guys, my name's Megan. I'm an actor with Zombie Infection and also part of the Twitch team, stream team, and the podcast.
Saz?
Hi, I'm Saz. I'm part of the Zombie Infection actor crew team. I also do TikToks and part of the Picking Brain.
We tried to get Saz into TikTok because we've actually had a viral video go quite well on TikTok, and it's around 700,000 views at the moment. It's it's gone a bit crazy. But she was so skeptical to begin with. And now she's up till 3 a.m. She's on it all the time. She's scrolling. She's got thumb ache. Yeah, crazy. And then we're joined in the top right-hand corner by Lee, as I said, who runs Faceless Ventures. So I've grabbed this blurb. You might want to update it with anything new that's happened. But dare to be... Faceless Ventures essentially are a scare attraction company that dare to be unusual, different and original. They don't just follow trends or create products solely for profit. Everything they do comes from a passion for what they believe in. Their theatrical company was founded in 2017, but the story started long before that. The company was formed by 4 members, all with a decade, which is fairly impressive, of industry experience within the immersive theatre, scare industry, music and design. The goal was to produce client-based original content, attractions, which focus on bringing the show to life. They want every single guest to not only passively enjoy the show, but to engulf themselves inside whichever theme they enter. Is that's a good summary? I mean, it's taken from your website.
Yeah, that's it. I don't think I wrote that. I would have sounded half as impressive.
They have created multi-sensory shows on both sides of the Atlantic, which we'll go into a little bit more detail about, that feature numerous upcoming documentary films, and have collaborated with some of the leading players in the world of immersive horror, and have also been featured in the New York Times. Tell us about that quickly.
Yeah. The New York Times a couple of years ago did a story on immersive horror,
right?
And we were contacted by them, and it was only like there's a couple of little snippets that they used, but they were using quite a lot of the like American companies, and we got mentioned as well 2 or 3 times in that. So it were quite.
It's a cool accolade, though. I would be promoting the fact that I was mentioned in the New York Times. That would be cool. I've got you have a long list of past shows, but I've just picked out a few here. Cruelty, which is one that we know about. Evac sounded quite cool. Is there anybody there as well? I mean, to just quickly dive into some of those. Which has been your favourite? You know, do you want to give us a little bit of insight into maybe which one ranks the best, and which has been your favourite over your history so far?
It's really difficult because one of the things that we always try to do is that we don't go down a set routine. So what you'll generally find that most scare attraction like creators, they'll it'll be a linear maze or it'll be a free flow walkthrough, but predominantly like all scare attractions stick to the same sort of criteria. You have a start, you have jump scares, and you have a finale, and then everything else in the middle is just added together. And it's just trying to make them unique. As the fact is that what we try to do is that we've got lots of different things. So we might produce a scare attraction like we did in EVAC in a sort of 125-year-old museum, and then we'll do stuff like Cracked, which is obviously the more extreme stuff, and also we'll do the immersive theatre stuff that's in between. So to say which show was as best or as my favourites is really difficult, because I think different genres have got different things. We did one called Diary of the Deceased, which was it was a 25-minute theatre show. That what we did was the guys just came into a building and they met a nurse, and this nurse, there was a dead body laid out on a slab, and it got a book, and in this book there were just 5 pages, and in theory what he did is that the nurse started to read the first page, and that was like his story as a little child. But then as she started to read it, a child ran in and took over the story and took the guests away, and the child told the story of him as a kid, and then they came back and met numerous other people through his lifestyle, and they realized within the sort of 20 minutes the problems he got in life and how he probably died. We also had live singers in that show, which is
cool.
something that we'd always tried to do, but we had a really good singer, Rebecca, and she sort of sang live at the end for the finale, which were it were quite sort of it sort of got your tears up. There were the people coming out crying in the end. It was sort of that sort of emotional, but that was probably the first show that we've done that was sort of full script, as in regarding like a theatre.
Right. Okay.
So I think that always stands out for me as something that was just like a pivotal change, really.
What was the core? Why did you do it? What was the core? Because you said you do a lot of different things, and there's a lot of different arms and types of experiences. But what was the one? What did something happen, or was there something that you've always had an interest in, and you thought, yes, that I want to do that now for my own venture. I want to set out and do that.
I think the main thing is that like going back a while, and obviously start to bore people, just give me a nudge. And we sort of started as home haunters, me and Sarah's. I sort of, maybe going back sort of 20 years, sort of found on the early dial-up internet that there was these things called home haunts in America. We found a publication called Theme Park Adventure, which at that time was like the biggest sort of publication of not mainly theme park stuff, though you'd think so with the name, but it was predominantly sort of scare stuff. Lots of things from Knott's Berry Farm, lots of sort of American haunts, and lots of home haunts. And I just fell in love with watching these videos on there. So
just quickly for our viewers that don't know, what exactly is a home haunt?
A home haunt is just exactly what it says. It's taking like a little scare attraction and making it in your front garden.
So in theory, what, the customer's front garden?
Yeah, so it will be literally, at that time I got a drive at the side, so I used to sort of make a little, it was all makeshift at that time, using sort of homemade props and stuff like that, so it would just make a little haunt on the drive, and that went into at that time a garage in the back garden, and they sort of went into the garage, and we just used lights and smoke machines, very basic stuff. I mean, we're talking about, this is, that this is before predominantly the scare attraction industry was sort of got on. I mean, we're going back to sort of, there may have been 1 or 2 scare cons. And when we talk about scare con, then we were talking about my first scare con, there were about 25, 30 people there.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And it's sort of, so I started to do the home haunts, and then we moved on from there to doing sort of like what we went into charity haunts, and we did 2 or 3 charity haunts for just local charities before we actually made the jump into doing just traditional scare attractions.
Yeah.
And
so
then from
just going back to the home haunts thing, so do they leave the property and then they come back, and do it, or are they
Yeah,
there?
you sort of think, in theory, what they do is we'd get them on Halloween. They'd just come up the drive, just same as normal trick or treaters, and they'd have to sort of go through. We might have an area with a couple of actors, or we've made sort of like a little walkthrough, just nothing much different to what like box standard Herries Fence scare attractions
Yeah, of
are
course,
now.
yeah.
And they would just go through, and they'd go into the garage, and in the garage there would be sort of like a jump scare. In theory, the scare attraction industry is, though it's moved with technology, the sort of concept of the scare attraction is very similar now to what it was 20 years ago.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Of course,
So,
a scare's a scare, right?
Yeah. So I sort of watched these videos avidly, and then when we decided to start doing them, we were quite lucky at that time. At that time, there was a company called G&G Entertainment, which did absolutely amazing scare attractions at that time. They were doing a scare attraction in the village where we lived. We sort of went down to see them. And at that time, I didn't go through scare attractions. I was absolutely petrified and stuff like that. I wouldn't even go on a ghost train. It was like really sort of surreal. And so they did one called Scary Tales, which was a take on old fairy tales. So they had lots of different fairy tale characters in there, and actually went through it and I fell in love with it straight away. Instantly fell in love with it, and just looked at what the aspects of what the UK scare attraction industry was doing at that time, and that's what we sort of said. Right, this is what we're going to do. So we then set up a little company called Primrose Unknown Projects. And Primrose Unknown Projects then went on to do scare attractions for 4 years, something 4 years.
Cool.
And we did numerous ones at different places. We won a SCAR award for the first evac we did at the National Emergency Services Museum.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
Yeah, while we were doing all this, is that I had already continued to watch the stuff that was happening in America, and it was just about this time that there was the early sort of birth of immersive theatre coming out.
Yeah.
So it was really early immersive theatre, early immersive horror stuff. So we had the early Russ McKamey stuff, and we all know what Russ McKamey is and McKamey Manor is now. But if you go back to when he first started to do his home haunts, that stuff was like revolutionary, and it was actually so scary. So it was extreme, it was hard, but you go through in groups of probably 15, 20, and there were lots of people having so much fun.
Just to summarise, so the McKamey Manor, if correct me if I'm wrong, but this is set up by a guy that's now considered to be the most extreme haunt around. The haunt lasts up to 10 hours, and guests go round in solo or two at a time. You may be bound, slapped, manhandled, covered in blood, made to vomit, or forced to eat cockroaches. Russ requests that you bring a donation of dog food for a local animal shelter, which is fine. That's good. So obviously this place is quite controversial, even among other haunters who claim its torment gives them a bad name. Yeah. So I mean, this is just on I actually have found this stuff before we started talking. There's a list that I'll go down and we'll sort of talk to see if you know of any of them. But he is at the top of that, and clearly you know of him.
Yeah, I mean, Russ is. I did a podcast a few years ago, Frequent Flyer podcast. We had him on as one of our first guests.
Oh, fantastic!
And we talked to him, and the guy is absolutely insane. He's like really, really. I mean, the stuff that he does now is just, that he's scorned upon it within the industry because it's just dangerous. It's just not safe. It's not doing anything that. There's no limitations to what he will do. It's just horrible stuff. So
was it always like that, or is he sort of, do you know, like like drug use? Like you start off and you do a little bit, and then it becomes an addiction, and then you just get more and more, and you crave more, and it gets bigger and more extreme. Yeah. Is it sort of that? Is it?
If you can find there's some McKamey Manor videos from really early, probably like 4 or 5 years ago. And he would take you through in groups of maybe 15, 20, nothing much different to like a traditional scare attraction that he built in his back garden. And it was so impressive. It was like a pre-built place in his house. And you went through different like sections. And he would throw blood on you and stuff like that. So it was like the sort of the early inceptions of probably extreme attractions.
Right.
But it was still nothing like what he turned into. And then it was just literally overnight. He went from doing the group tours one Halloween to then going and doing the individual tours, which then just became like pure torture.
I've just found a video. Let's move it over and just put it for our guys to have a quick look, just to give them some concept of it.
Brady McDonald, LA Times. As you can see, I'm bloody, soaking wet, and terrified.
So he's in LA.
He's not in LA now. He
Okay.
was. He was in San Diego, and then he moved. He was virtually shut down. I mean, how they shut down a free haunt is just unreal. That's how bad it was. And the fact is that he shut down, and now I think he's working out of, I think it's Tennessee. I've not really looked at his stuff for maybe 12, 18 months now, because it's just, it's not even worth looking at. It's just...
This is disgusting. Oh, man. That's crazy. I mean, I don't know how old that video is, but it looked like maybe it's 2013. So is that sort of around the time?
Yeah, so if there was a big group of people going through it, then that was pre-McCamey Manor turn into the horrendous stuff.
Sounds
If it's one or two people, then that is the proper McCamey Manor stuff, which is that it is bad.
That's crazy. All right, so let's go back to so obviously, so he what would you? I mean, I personally haven't done any of your events. I'm looking for I don't know which one I would do. What would you recommend? I mean, I'm not, personally, like the extreme thing doesn't particularly appeal to me, but I quite like the idea of something that's narrative driven, that's that still challenges me in some way, I guess.
I think that, I mean, we, as I said, we're now going back 4 or 5 years when we were sort of just going into this stuff, and then obviously from there, there was lots of other sort of places journeying up in America that were doing not just the horror stuff. There was some great immersive theatre companies starting out and doing some great stuff. But immersive theatre wise, there was Blackout that was they opened up round about that time.
Mm-hmm.
Heretic was starting to do their first numerous shows. And it was them sort of stuff that I sort of dropped upon, and just there was nothing in the market over here doing anything like that. And our scary attractions, we'd always been not one for having a no touch rule. We've always touched, even if it would sort of, if it just hands on people or something like that. Never sort of anything else. It was, it were always sort of family friendly. But I never sort of got and enjoyed the idea of like no touching.
Yeah.
I think it's just, it gives you another aspect you can work with.
Yeah.
So we sort of work with that, and then the whole concept of what we did changed, and we sort of stopped doing Primrose Unknown Project stuff, and we met Rosie and James, and we then turned it then to Faceless Ventures.
Yeah.
Once we turned to Faceless Ventures, the first show that we did as for Faceless Ventures was Cracked.
Okay.
Which is, if you don't know, is that at that time it were a 6-hour endurance event. It was the most extreme thing this side of America by far.
So what was it called? Cracked on your website now. Survival Experience, yeah. So Europe's most demanding psychological challenge and experiment, as seen in the New York Times. It's in its 5th year, so it kept going. Then it was obviously clearly popular. Yeah.
It's migrated lots since then. The show is reduced in time. It used to be 6 hours. It's now roughly around about 4 hours. But it's still very demanding. It's very hands-on. It is very extreme. It's as extreme as I'd want anything to do. But
Is that still
over
going?
time-
Is crack still going?
Yes, but that should have been this Easter. The final crack should have been this Easter.
Right.
We had 7 different we had people coming and flying in from 7 different countries to do it. We had 3-4 people flying in from America. We had
I've
people
seen that. Yeah.
coming in from Switzerland, from Germany, from Norway. We had them Belgium. We had them flying in from all over to go through the event. But unfortunately, we had to cancel it. We made the decision a long time ago, before even the lockdown, was that because of the sort of intimacy of the show, there was not a chance that we wanted to sort of be that close to sort of as guests or as actors in that sort of vicinity as well.
I've just looking down one of the reviews. Is that a tattoo that somebody got?
Yeah, we've got. I think there's about 17 people now got crack tattoos.
What, actual tattoos?
Yeah.
Is there a, like, I would imagine to be the type of person that travels across the Atlantic to come and do this, you've got to be a bit intense, haven't you? Is it a bit of the cult following? You know, are these people? They do a lot of them to get a tattoo of an extreme attraction. Do you sort of categorize it? Do they have similarities? Of the, you know, what is it they seem to have as part of their personality?
A lot of it is that there's. We have lots of people that repeatedly come back to our shows, especially the crack shows, because it is something different and it's unique to probably our company this in England.
Yeah.
There's only probably 2 or 3 in Europe that do it. So you generally find it is the same sort of people, and there's numerous people that's been through every conception of cracked, and we have like, if you ever go through the event or act in the event, we have like a secret Facebook page, and you're allowed to. If you go through the event or act in it, you get to go on there. And every year, sort of the first Saturday in November, we always meet up in Blackpool, and we have a weekend. We go down on the Saturday and we stay while Sunday, and we've had 30 or 40 people there. For even last year, we had sort of 30, 35 people, and they all sort of can relate to each other because of the experience they've been through.
That's what I mean. There must be a common ground somewhere.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I mean, we did a show in Los Angeles, and we had most of these flew out to LA to go and do the 2 shows.
Yeah, I just read that. 2018 was it? Cracked versus Heretic in Los Angeles.
Yeah. Heretic is a real. They no longer produce shows now, but they sort of did really great, groundbreaking, immersive horror shows from Los Angeles. And the year before, they actually flew to us, and we did Crack versus Heretic in England.
Right.
And then the year after, we flew out to them and did the show over there. But again, we did 2 shows in LA. We put them on sale, and they sold out in about 25 minutes.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So what is it? What do we think, guys? What is it that is there a state of euphoria? So, like, you know, why do people jump out of planes? Why do people bungee jump? You know, is there a state of euphoria when you come through something? Do people feel they need to challenge themselves? Is that the type of people that they do?
I think so. Some people are adrenaline junkies like myself. They just enjoy that kind of activity, I think.
Lee, would you say it's I'm not sure that they categorize in the same group. I'm not sure that somebody that skydives or does, you know, would necessarily be attracted to your type of experience.
Probably not. And I think a lot of it is that I think a lot is, you know, it's down to adrenaline. And the other thing is that you find that some people have been through scare attractions and want something different, and they just want that little bit more. But predominantly, just a slight background to the Cracked experience the fact is that when we first made it, we decided very early on that we didn't want it to be everybody think that we'd done it. By that time we'd done scare attractions for probably 3-4 years. The scare attraction industry knew us as doing scare attractions. So what we actually did was we created a character, and this character then he promoted the show. And when we said we were going to create this character, we decided to create him from scratch. So he was a psychological student that had come from America. He was studying in Lincoln, and he just set up a Facebook page. And we had rules that he could not contact anybody from within the scare attraction industry. They had to find him, and we let him generically build over probably 2-3 months. And it took roughly that amount of time. And he put some posts on different scare extreme attraction websites and groups on Facebook, and it sort of generically went from there. So when we announced we were doing Cracked, the survival experience, the first one, it was there was a guy called Blake Chacon was doing the event. Nothing to do with us at all. And at that time, there was not just me, Sarah, Rosie, and James. There was a couple more. A guy called Brett Jones who runs an immersive sort of scare attraction company out of Wales. There was Ollie Cook and his wife at that time, Jack. They were in it as well. And so we all sort of came together. There was a guy called Paul Davis who does all the music for Burton Screenfest and such all that. So we all came together to create this thing, but we all went totally unknown to anybody. And we decided that we set off in July. We set off in November for the show to be in April. We did the show, and then we did the big reveal at ScareCon that year. That Blake was down to do a speech, and instead of Blake getting on the stage, we all got on the stage and explained what we'd done, as in the social media experiment.
Yeah. That's cool.
Because Cracked as well is not just a show. You do get it's a 6-hour show or a 4-hour show now, but also what happens is once you buy your ticket in, the tickets go on sale in December. Once you bought a ticket, you put in like a secret Facebook group, and then you're like psychoanalyzed then over 4 months by answering questions.
Okay.
So on a day-to-day basis, Blake will ask you questions and you have to answer him. And then in theory, so by the time we get to the event, like we know everything about every part of you. Literally.
For what purpose?
In theory, it's all part of entertainment. That's all we're in. We're all in the entertainment business, aren't we? That's what we do.
Yeah.
So it was just something new. And the fact is that if you think that you've got 20 people in this group, and then this group have been together for probably 4 months before the event, talking to each other daily, constantly daily, and that's what it is. That that there's people that's made huge best friends that that would never have met each other if they hadn't been in sort of these groups, and they've told each other the best highs of the life, the lows of the life. Literally, they've just poured everything out, and it's down to the fact is that by the time the event comes, these guys are totally subservient to this one man, and they will do anything for this guy.
That's incredible. That's
wow.
If you
do they know they don't know that this guy is part of it?
They did it at the start, and probably the first 2-3 years they didn't. Now they do know.
Okay,
it's a little bit of standing joke now, as the fact is. But anything to do with Crack never comes from anything to do with Faceless Ventures. Even if one of you guys now messaged me and said, "Can you tell me when the dates of Cracked is?" I could not answer you that. I would say to you, do me a favour, you'll have to just fire Blake a message through and he'll tell you.
Is Blake a real person?
Blake is a multitude of lots of people. There's a guy that obviously plays him, and there's the guy that does him on social media.
Right.
So it's so I think that them two people have Blake. We've played him now for 4 or 5 years. He's just part of our lives.
Yeah. I've just read the final bit of that review just before the photos. It just says, "We are now Blake." That's how that review ends.
It's the one of the things is he's got his own like psalm as such. So at the start of each show, they always read it out. So some of the tattoos have actually got that Sam wrote on them.
Oh, wow.
And that finishes. It finishes with "I am Blake, you are Blake, we are Blake," and it's just everybody is together.
What's the inspiration for that? Where's that inspiration come from? Is it just something that you fancy trying? Did it come from just a random discussion? Where's the inspiration for that type of psychological character?
I think the character of Blake itself is really sort of evolved over the years. So the Blake now is probably very similar. So when we first started, he was a psychological student. That's why we did all the tests. That's why he asked it, because he wanted to get into your mindset. So from then, what we did is that he's transformed, because as you say, it's more like a little bit of a cult following.
Yeah.
That over the years, that's where the story went. So the fact is that the story is now heading towards the finale, which would have been last weekend, where all the group as such, they all go to this place called Reliquia, which is like his heaven.
Okay.
So if you sort of think of that they were, that's where they were all heading. So we did a show last year called that looked at the Chacon tapes, and that was set in the future, so it was set to this year. That when the guests came into a building, there was just dead bodies everywhere. So in theory, it was like a mass cult suicide.
Okay.
And then they were regressed. The story made them that they were regressed through hypnotherapy to then find out how the people that were died had got there.
Right.
And so we did little excerpts of Blake's past. So we found out why he did certain things in his shows and how he did it. And then so it sort of, in the end, they all sort of drank the Kool-Aid and killed themselves.
There's clearly a lot of research goes into the shows that you do. It's creativity in its purest form. I think the horror sort of genre is one of the most creative genres I think that are out there. There's art in some of the stuff that we do and that you guys do, and it's not just, to just clarify, it's not just, we're not talking about an attraction where it's throwing blood on someone for the sake of it. There's story and narrative, and there's creative intent behind, clearly a lot of development and research, and this one, it says that it was a private show. It's sort of in, so what's why is the private show? Is that people coming to you and going, here's $1,000, can you just make this show for us, and then you go?
Yeah, in a nutshell, that's what it was. There were some people came to us and said, we'd like you to do a show, and so we said, yeah, we'll fine, I'll write you a show. And so we wrote this show, and there was 8 people that paid for it, and then we took them through this private show as such. So they got to see the ending of what this year's show would be.
Right, okay.
They obviously saw how it all ended.
Yeah.
Which is the end of it all was obviously going towards the fact is that if you think the Jonestown Massacre, that's exactly where it was heading.
Right, okay. So what's your creative process? Because I don't know about you, but everyone's like, oh, you're in lockdown, like you've got all this time free. Like
I said that to you though, didn't I? You must be like, your creative mind must be going bonkers.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we spoke about it, and I'm actually, it's the complete opposite. I'm not, I'm not out and about. I'm not seeing the world. I'm not interacting with people. I don't, I don't have those same creative. My mind used to work a lot in the car. So in long journeys, I'd listen to music, and in the car, because I'm doing something that my brain doesn't really need to think about. It's like second nature driving, like riding a bike. So my brain obviously would then listen to music, and I'd sort of be creative in the car, but I haven't had that time. So creatively, I haven't really felt in the right place to write anything, in spite of having time that I wish I had when the lockdown wasn't happening. So I guess a question might be, what was your creative process before the lockdown, and how are you still trying to be creative now with anything that you're writing?
I think my creative, very similar to yours, is that I work in that my office is an hour and a half away, and through the daytime I may do another 2-3 hours driving. So fact is, yourself, that you know, that you daydream while you're driving, and
Yeah.
no matter how much we should be in things, I listen to podcasts and more than I listen to radio. And it's just, it might be just something that I hear and that sort of just thinks, we could do a show on that. And it could be something simple. Or it's just waking up from a dream and you know, I've got a piece of paper and a book at the side of my bed. And it's like, sometimes you wake up and it's like, oh, it might be just literally one sentence that you think, oh, that could work in something.
Yeah.
And so I think that the beauty that we've got is that because our shows are not sort of any sort of set, you know, we're not doing a scare attraction. So it's not as I'm thinking like, oh, how do I make the most original clown maze, or how do I make the most original zombie maze, or something like that. The fact is that we've sort of got like an open world where I can sort of just go, well, look, I'd love to do a show like this. How can we make it work? And that's virtually where we start. So it's that I'm quite lucky that I've got Sarah, I've got Rosie, James. We've all got sort of different attributes. So the fact is, predominantly the creative mind is me. I'll sort of go to them and just say, I've just thought of this idea. And then generally,
how many times have they heard that? Yeah.
So many. I think the best one was we did a show. We do a show every Christmas called Unwrapped.
Right.
And what Unwrapped is that we just put the tickets on sale, and we just say, right, we're going to give you a 45-minute show. We're not telling you anything about it. So that's it, literally just that. And we give them a rating because our shows, because we're a bit all over the place, we've started to come up with a rating system where the fact is that 0 is it's an immersive theatre piece, 5 is extreme, and then everything else in between we sort of rate it. Yeah. So if you wanted to go, like you were saying, oh, I don't know which attraction to go through of yours, you can look at rating and just say, number 2, it's like like my immersive theatre piece. We might touch you. In theory, it's like a standard scare attraction that lets you touch you. Yeah. And then we go down from there. So predominantly, I Unwrapped for this year, or last year as such, we were driving up to Farmageddon for their press night.
Okay.
And we sort of, and I said to Sarah, I've got everything for this year's Unwrapped show. In fact, no, it must have not been, because, in fact, no, I'm telling lies. It were a lot earlier than that. Is we were going up to Scream Factory for, must have been one of their, it might have even been their February show, their Valentine's show. So we'd been there, and then I said to Rosie and James, I said, a couple of weeks later, I said, I've got the concept for Unwrapped this year. So it were called The Intern. And so what I came up with an idea was the fact is that there would be no show. So what we would do is that the guests were, in theory, the guests were met at the top of some stairs that take you into a basement, and they were given lanyards, and on this lanyards there were Faceless Ventures intern badges. Okay. So they became our interns for the day. As they walked down the stairs, they were met by me, Rosie, and James and Sarah having the most rowdiest row ever. And virtually it got to a point where the girls and were saying that the boys were trying to take over the show. We were saying this, it was just a total carnage. We opened the door and there's these guests waiting for us. So in theory, we're like, what the fuck are these doing here? And it was like, well, these are his interns for a show. And it's like, oh, right, okay. But we ain't got a show. So we said, well, I'll tell you what, why don't we let them make the show? So what we did was we split into groups, boys and girls, and we split the guests in half and we took them into a room. And then over 20, 25 minutes, we let them create their own scare scene.
Okay.
So it was, if you think like The Apprentice.
Yeah.
There was a flipboard, and they were given multiple choices of themes, multiple choices of what it was. So it could have been, I don't know, it could have been a zombie scene in so-and-so, with so-and-so, and so-and-so. So they got like 7 or 8 different prompts. So in theory, within that 20 minutes, they created their own scare scene.
Okay, that's cool.
And then they had to act it out for the other group.
Okay. Were they in the same room? Or they did?
No, we had them in 2 different rooms, and then they went across. And then we had like secret adjudicators. That what they did is that they went into each scare attraction and they marked them from 1 to 10. We did it the old sort of like come dancing, 7,
Okay,
and
yeah.
everything like that. It was so tongue in cheek
Yeah.
that like, but there was what we did is that we let them just pick everything. So they picked the costumes, they picked even the actors. We went in, and instead of having Kiosk Keith, we had, I can't remember what his name was, but it was a very similar thing to that. That they had to answer a question, and if they got a question right, they could pick a prop. So in theory, they got everything in, and then they sort of made this like 2-3 minute scare attraction at the
That's
end
cool.
of. So
that's really
and
cool. I love concepts like that. I love concepts that are just a little bit different, like, you know, that
we
put
just
people in a
thought,
different scenario.
Yeah, it went down so well. The show was due to come back in May, but again, because of this lockdown, we're going to have to sort of cancel that for the time being as such. But
Do you recycle a lot of your shows? Do you sort of leave them dormant for a couple of years and then bring them back with sort of a new edge?
Yeah, we did that with. I know you mentioned earlier. Is there anybody there?
Yeah.
Which we did it. We did that collaborating with a magician called Ashton Carter, and the story of that was that he was a debunked paranormal investigator that had the last time he'd done this show 5 years ago, there'd been a fire, and in this fire some people had perished, and so he'd gone off the scene, and so he was making his grand return to this sort of scene as such. And so what they did was, for 3/4 of an hour, he took you through a paranormal investigation, which is really good because everything we're doing were just magic.
Yeah, of course.
So he took you through table tipping, he took you through pendants moving, the glass on the table moving round. Virtually all the sort of what you class as like the box standard like paranormal investigation stuff he did.
Yeah.
And there was nobody that can come out of that show that went that, you know, it's like, was that real? Weren't it real? Because everything was
of course, yeah.
And then it all finished with like a Victorian seance. So that show we'd done years ago, and we brought that back and we did it in Newark a couple of months ago.
Okay, cool.
And that will come back again because we did a show in Theatre Delhi in Sheffield, and I think that's going to go there probably next year now.
That's cool. So our experiences are, we try to make them as very real as we possibly can. So we set them in a real world. So like you said there, you ended with like a Victorian seance. Are your experiences very grounded in reality? These are all, surely to be the most scary, you need to make sure that you don't make that sort of, you don't break that wall of, okay, well, that's clearly, you know, someone in a dress. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I think so. You've just got to make it as good as possible. And the fact is that, you know, it's just trying to make it as that Victorian seance where he'd actually done that in front of sort of magicians and stuff like that before. And, you know, that was everything that you would think after a Victorian seance. It was flying skulls and ectoplasm and everything that you can imagine in between.
Sounds like my kind of event.
and just to see, you know, probably just to be privileged to go behind the curtain and see that done in rehearsals was really interesting.
How much do you get involved, like with the actual, like?
I like to write it, and then what I generally do then is that Sarah will work with the actors. She's far more actor friendly than me. I'm just a grumpy old man.
Really? Yeah.
And so by the time that we get to that day, I don't know about you, and it may just be me, but by the time we get to the show, I've lived that show for probably 6-7 months.
Oh, yeah.
I just can't. I'm already thinking about next show, or maybe 2 shows in front. So by the time we get to it, it's like, it's a necessity that we have to put the show on. But for me, that's the thing at the end of it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Awesome. So we've got about 10-15 minutes left. Meg, have you got any questions that you fancied running past before we do this game that Saz has been working on for months?
I think all my questions, all the ones I had in my head have been covered.
Awesome. Which ones you fancy doing then, Meg?
Like question.
We're signing her up now. Yeah, the intern. Do the intern when it comes back.
The intern really.
That would be fun.
The intern is an immersive theatre piece. It's not really predominantly to do with horror. We're looking at changing that into using standard things and taking it to fringe shows this year. Oh, we was, but next year as such now, everything's disappeared this year.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Just quickly going on to that is the fact is that obviously we're not stood still because obviously the lockdown is that we've now created collaboratively with a couple more people a thing called the Pandora Network, and that is immersive theatre online, which is it's a 7-day show. Don't ask. We never do things easy, and the fact is it's a 7-day show where you're given a mystery, and then over the 7 days you have to help some agents solve the murder or whatever the mystery would be.
Okay, where can we find out about that?
The website is pandoranetwork.online. It's got a Facebook page as well.
Pandora Network online.
Yeah, we're actually at the moment we are beta testing it this week. Ready for it to be. The first show will be the first week in May.
Okay,
Nice.
Very cool. Is that sort of so? What that's all online? That's kind of because there's a lot of these things going on at the moment where it's you can do it from your living room kind of thing.
In theory, everything's done over Facebook groups, Messenger, anything else, WhatsApp. Oops.
Okay.
So it's the Pandora Network .online, is it?
.online, yeah.
Yeah. So we investigate and explore the deeper mysteries of our world. We seek answers. That's the right one?
Yeah,
and you've got a video on there, yeah?
Yeah.
Let's play that video quick then so that people can get a gist of what it's about.
And I am here to welcome you to our organization. Here at the Pandora Network, we investigate and explore the deeper mysteries in our world. We seek answers when the others turn their heads away. We explore with an open mind and an open heart. We are not afraid of the unexpected. That means we often find the unexpected. We are not a secret organization. We don't hide in the shadows. But many people prefer to deny the complexities of our world. Many people would rather not see the truth. These people often fail to see us too. But we are there searching for answers. The Pandora Network was established in 1958, and since then has grown to become an international network of agents, with field agents in over 30 countries around the world, supported by an international online team of volunteer analysts. We have established bases wherever we have detected high levels of unusual incidents. In recent times, we have seen an increase in the amount of unusual incidents we have identified. In the last month alone, we have seen hotspots of bizarre events in London, Paris, Los Angeles, New York, and strangely, the small town of Pondermere, England. We have recently been recruiting additional volunteer online analysts to support our work investigating these hotspot areas. I am delighted to welcome you to the Pandora Network as one of our newest online analysts. You have been assigned to support our new Pondermere unit. You will be supporting our two recently appointed field agents, Felix Chase and Beatrice Blackthorne. When a new case begins, the case briefing will be posted on our group chat as well as on our website. Once you have reviewed this, through your discussions on the group chat with other analysts and our field agents, you will hopefully help them in deciding where to focus their investigation. When a case is resolved, a full debriefing will be presented to you. Thank you for lending us your time, your dedication, your teamwork, and your brilliant minds. It's a pleasure to have you on board.
Very cool. That's very cool, that. Yeah, really good. Sounds interesting. So is that a ticket thing, or how does that work?
Yeah, the tickets going on sale on Sunday, and then the show starts on the 2nd of May. The beauty thing of being online and stuff like that is that anybody can do it. So at the moment we're beta testing it with somebody that lives in Norway, somebody that lives in Florida, somebody that lives in Los Angeles, and trying to make sure that it works
You've
for
got quite
everybody.
an international audience. Like, that's quite unusual. I mean, why is that? Because you've got a sort of, it's quite niche, a lot of the stuff that you do.
I think so. Yeah, it could be that. Yeah, yeah, and I think it's just that the fact is, I don't know. Sometimes I don't know. We get a message from somebody from like haunting.net across in America. That's a great publication. There's that Taylor's doing the trial for us, and so it's that we've always had that sort of especially I think it's because of the love they had from the American stuff. It's just that, so from there onwards, it's been fine.
Sounds great. Awesome. All right. Okay. Well, thanks ever so much
No worries.
for joining us. Right now, because this is our third cast, we're trying to just come up with things that we can quickly do as a little fun kind of exit. Look how embarrassed she is. She is so underprepared for this right now. So I like giving my guys stuff to do and not paying them any money to do it. So I asked Saz. I asked Saz if she could come up with some kind of little game, and she's come up with this. What is it called, Saz?
It is Live or Die.
Live or Die.
Really, really creative name there.
Yeah. So.
Trying to get it camera closer.
Yeah. So, do you want to tell us a little bit what the concept is then, Saz?
Right. So the idea is you are fighting for your life. It is dark. It is at night, and there is a horror character after you. You don't know what character it is so far, and you don't know what kind of weaponry you have. Yeah. You first of all need to decide if you're going to run, fight, or hide.
I haven't seen this, by the way, so I was as excited to see how this goes down.
Then after you've decided if you're going to run, fight, or hide, you're going to pick a number 1 to 7, and then you're going to pick a letter A to I. We're going to reveal what they are, and we're going to reveal if you are going to live the night or if you're going to die.
Go on then. Go on then, Saz.
So, go ahead. Would you like to run, fight, or die? Run, fight,
or die. Good
I'll
start.
Hide. I'll hide.
Okay.
You'll hide. You'll go for hiding. Okie dokie. Okay. Would you like to pick a letter from A to I? Which one would you like to go for?
B.
You're going to go for B. Okay, so we're going to have B. And what number would you like to go for? You've got 1 to 7.
4.
You're going to go for 4.
There's so much
effort.
So
you're hiding from Jason.
That's a good start.
Yeah.
And you've got an invisibility cloak.
Oh, that's
nice. There you go.
So
winners.
I think you can live with that.
You're gonna live.
Okay, live. What's that? 1 point. 1 point to live.
So, yeah. Greg, would you like to?
Oh, it's me. Oh, we're doing this too, are we?
Yeah. Go for it.
Right. So, what? A to I.
Would you like to run, fight, or hide?
Oh, sorry. I will run.
You're gonna run. Okay. A to I, but you can't pick B.
C.
C, you're going to go for C?
Yeah.
And what number would you like to go for? 1 to 7.
6.
You're going to go for 6. So, you're running from... Whoop, let's not drop it. Dracula. And you have got a wooden stake.
Boom!
Dude! So boom!
Absolute.
Okay. So it's between the two of you at the moment. So
right.
Meg, are you going to live or die? Let's see. Would you like to run?
I lived as well, Lee. You missed that. I was running from Dracula and I ended up with a wooden stake.
So. I'm also gonna run for the hills. I'm also gonna
You're gonna run. Okay. What letter would you like to pick and what number?
F and 7. I'm so gonna.
And 7.
I'm so gonna do.
So you're running from Valak.
Oh, for God's sake!
And you've got a gun. You die.
Ah.
I might as well choose the gun on myself because there's no way I'm going to get away from Valak.
Yeah, you might as well shoot yourself.
We need some some horror
Let's go
music.
for it one last time and see if we've got an overall winner. So let's go back to the start. Would you like to run, fight, or hide?
Oh, we'll fight then, Fight.
You're going to fight, and what number would you like to go for? You've got 1, 3, 5, and 2.
3.
Here we go. We've got some scary music.
Oh, brilliant. And what letter would you like to go for? We've got A, E, G, I, H, and D.
I.
I. Okie dokie. So, you are... You've
Running.
Got it after running, that's it, I forgot. You're running from it, and you've only got their name and an incantation.
Oh.
So
I could have used that.
I'm
I
not
swear,
sure,
I
yeah.
could have used
That's
that.
not going to cut it,
Yeah,
I'm
you
afraid.
definitely die there. Is it going to survive? Shall we
I could have used that incantation against Valak and survived. I swear.
So me then,
Teamwork, we could have done it together.
yeah,
Greg, let's see if Greg is going to survive the night or not. So
Okay,
you can
so I'm
pick
gonna-
between 1, 5, and 2.
I'm going to fight number 2.
Fight number 2,
Yeah,
and you've got A, E, G, H, or D.
A.
A. Okay, so you're fighting zombies
Oh, brilliant.
Hey.
With
with a
you've got-
baseball bat.
a baseball bat.
Oh,
you
this is
win.
fine.
You have
Winner.
survived the night.
Winner for
And
me.
Greg is our only survivor.
Winners.
Well done.
Well done. Saz, that was amazing. That was
First to
great.
die. That was really fun. Typical first to die. First to die. Typical.
I had no idea how that was going to go, guys.
Good stuff.
That went
Well
really
done,
well.
Saz. Yeah,
Fun.
good job.
Yeah.
We'll elaborate. We'll have actual pictures of characters and
There
stuff.
will be
Yeah.
pictures eventually.
Yeah, get on the sketchbook.
Yeah, I'm sure that it's something like that. I'm sure I could turn that into an attraction.
Yeah, yeah, there we go. Just giving him an attraction, Saz.
don't steal it. It's mine.
Awesome.
Copyrighted.
Well, thanks ever so much again, Lee. Is there anything, so what have you got coming up? What's the best thing to plug? Where can we find out about you? Tell us your Facebook handles and your other channel handles for our audience.
Well, with Faceless Ventures, we're on all sort of everything, Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. So it's just Faceless Ventures. And at the moment, as I say, the next thing we've got is the tickets go on sale for the Pandora Network. The first one, which is called Burying the Hatchet, which is a great story about there's a body found and there's a mystery to it. And you've got to try and work out with the agents already there. You've got to try and help them decide who's done the murder and what it is. So it's like a murder mystery. It sort of hits all the boxes on most of the stuff. A little bit of horror stuff in there as well, supernatural.
Cool.
So that's as nearest one. You'll get that on, again, Pandora Network on all the sort of normal social media, and Pandora Network .online for tickets. They're £10. That's all for 7 days entertainment.
Wow, that's awesome. That's
That's
really
pretty good.
cool. All right, fantastic. Well, yeah, been a really, really good chat. Really interesting.
Cool.
The video will get chopped together and it will go up on our Facebook page, which is at Picking Brains, which is slowly growing, and our YouTube channel, which is at Zombie Infection. There's loads of other content on there as well. So we have a couple of other interviews that we've done, and we've got all of our game streaming. Obviously, we're on Twitch, so do give us a follow by hitting that like button in the top corner. We've had really good numbers tonight, so thank you everybody for joining us. And yeah, we'll see you again next time. Everyone stay safe. Thanks ever so much. See you soon.
See you later.
Bye, guys.
See you.